Hello and welcome to L.I.N.K Live. My name is Marina Mayer, Editor-in-Chief of Food Logistics and Supply and Demand Chain Executive.
And I'm Brielle Jekyll. I'm the Associate Editor.
And today, as you can see, we have a very special guest with us. We have Mark Baxa, President and CEO for the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, also known as CSCMP. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, outstanding. Glad to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to join you and your audience today.
Absolutely. So today we're going to kind of talk about supply chain trends. We're going to talk about supply chain education and kind of what's going on in the industry. You know, we have CSCMP Edge in Atlanta, September 19th through 22nd. It's in person and virtual. So make sure you go to cscmp.org to register. I will be there, so make sure you stop by our booth as well. Our booth is 723, so everybody mark that down right now. But Mark, you know, we're coming off of somewhat of a pandemic, but we have some things coming, you know, down the road based off of the folks and the members in your organization. What are some of the trends that you're seeing with regards to the state of the supply chain as it is today?
Thank you, Marina, for that question. And before I begin with an answer, I just want to thank you and your organization and everybody that's involved here for your hosting of this event, but also your collaboration with CSCMP. It's very, very important to us. And without you, we don't have an organization. So thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, the supply chain is feeling tremendous compression from all aspects and all verticals, and all industries are not escaping what currently is happening today. We have on top of a bullwhip effect driven by surgence of demand that sometimes for many industries comes as a complete surprise, to a challenge fulfilling that demand with the amount of available resources, capacity to deliver, and really human resources to manage. We are in a cycle that we have not seen in perhaps ever. You know, we've crawled out of big challenges such as the challenges that Hurricane Katrina and now Ida have created for us. We've also seen other weather implications such as the snowstorm of Houston impacting the fuel industry and resulting impacts for many industries that use petroleum-based products, natural gas to make the things that they make. But with the human pandemic that has, and we continue to live through now, has created an incredible compression in our supply chain. And what I mean by that is that we have a mix that's almost an uncontrolled mix of supply and demand in nearly all sectors and all verticals of the supply chain. Perhaps the most noteworthy, and have been for some period of time now, is the transportation sector. And that doesn't mean that our ability to source raw materials and components to make the things that we make and do it in a sustainable fashion isn't in play, because it all is. It all is. And to many industries, some are going to be more important than others in terms of creating this compression I talk about. But bottom line is we have the challenge of unmet demand in many cases, lost sales, and in a cycle of challenged supply chain from a predictability and quality of supply. So we are living through this right now. And as we reach for solutions, and that's one of the reasons I think we're still seeing such a high interest in people to gather in Atlanta, is now is the time. People really want answers. They also want to help their own teams grow through this experience by improving their own core competencies and capabilities, because no matter what we do, in the end, it's really about our ability to manage the process as humans, right? And we have innovations and digital technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and these are going to continue to advance and be supporting parts of what we do, and for many industries, a larger part perhaps than what they've ever played in the past. But without the human conscious, without the ability to manage from a core competency and capability perspective, we'll lose. Mm-hmm. So people are very interested in keeping their teams sharp. But I would say today that there isn't one specific issue that's challenging our global supply chains, but there's some that are more noteworthy and more newsworthy, such as the challenges we're having with the transportation sector, both internationally and domestic.
I want to steer, keep talking about transportation here, because we're seeing a lot of trends due to the pandemic. Some are saying reshoring or nearshoring is the way to go, focusing more on technologies. You know, they're all key factors in building a pandemic-proof supply chain. What other trends like that in transportation are you seeing?
Well, let me start with the whole concept that has been for a long period of time very beneficial for the supply chain and also creating supply chain surplus, and that is the opportunity to improve gross profit by looking at cost savings and efficiencies. And one of the areas that we have focused on as an industry or as a practice for many years is the idea of just-in-time inventory and a whole alignment across the supply chain to feed into that model of making things and having the right material at the right place at the right time, so that we don't create a unintended pressure on working capital by stocking too much of something too far in advance. So now we're in a place where resiliency and redundancy matter, and for every industry it's going to be different. So to say that everybody needs to reshore, move away from extended supply chains that are 5,000 miles long to those that are 3 minutes apart, that isn't going to fit everybody's model, because it's really about capacity and capability of everybody in the supply chain to deliver what you actually want delivered, and so you can make what you make. Every industry is going to be different. So I think we're in a hybridization state right now. In fact, I know we are. Our members tell us that they're considering all different models to look at building in the assurance of supply and the capability to deliver to their customers, be it business to business or business to consumer. So right now, I would say that you're going to see a whole cross-section of learning, testing, and development in this area. Now, a lot of this idea around the reshoring in the U.S. and building U.S.'s competitiveness back, taking it away from China, and these kind of things all started with the construct of the Section 301 tariffs and, impacting in a negative way our ability to, help China grow, all this political moniker, right, and then grow in the U.S., et cetera. The reality is the supply chain has a tremendous ownership and power in all of this. And no matter what happens to us, we have the ability to respond and grow and develop new methods to supply the world's needs. So if you look at the combination of the transportation sector and the challenges there, certainly that's driving a shorter distance between point of resource purchase to supply to manufacture. What I mean by that is if we're continually building a pipeline of developing and building out a long distance supply chain where resources needed to build what we build here in the US as an example, or in Europe or in Asia, it doesn't matter. We're looking at that distance and the impact and the business partners that are needed to make that successful. And right now, if you go into a boardroom and say, we're going to outsource everything to Asia, you're probably going to get pushed out pretty fast, because it's not a well thought out model, because everybody knows transportation's an issue. You can't supply reliably.
Right.
But companies are caught in these scenarios today where it's not easy to crawl out of it. You've invested in manufacturing capacity, you have the native intelligence, the quality parameters matter. So the reluctancy to pull out quickly is there. Some industries have the ability to respond much easier than others. Retail ready-made solutions, you don't make, you buy. You can look at alternative sources for that, but then it still gets back to quality, time, and place. So there isn't one single answer, but to say they're all in play today and people are looking at ways to innovate in this way, definitely are all in play. And there's a lot of that's going on today.
I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about learning in the supply chain. I know that there's many sessions coming up at your CSCMP Edge event that focus on supply chain learning, and you guys are one of our partners for our Supply Chain Learning Center. Can you give some insight into how important learning is in the supply chain?
Sure, and let me speak personally from the heart on this. So as a people leader for many, many years in the supply chain, there certainly was the belief that I held, and the coaching around us from our HR teams, is that 70% of what's learned is on the job. 20% 20% of it is from coaching and mentoring, and 10% comes from some form of external core competency gathering, whether it be continuous education, learnings from CSCMP, the Edge conference, or self-study. And in some cases, you got to remix that. You've got to rebalance it, because today we're in a place where this is uncharted water, right? Your CEOs of corporations are relying and putting a lot of pressure on supply chain leaders across the whole plan, source, make, and deliver model. Come up with reliable solutions. We have demand that can't be met, right? We have chargebacks from our major big box stores. We have all kinds of dynamics going on today that are pushing against our ability to serve the market. So what happens? What do? Well, you have to continue to look at that. And there's only so much on the job learning we're going to get right now because we've not seen it before. Now is the time, really the time, to press up against others that are having similar experiences and are taking some risks and learning from those risks, and find those individuals who are willing to talk about their experiences so that you can develop a better model. Maybe there's individuals that have been a planning function or the procurement and sourcing function or logistics that also need to learn about other connected functions in the supply chain so they can think more holistically about solutions. And the case for education goes on and on and on. The point is, never stop learning. Stephen Covey said it a long time ago, never stop sharpening the saw. You have to keep doing this. And that's why CSCMP and our foundation exists, is that we're here to sustain the learning curve from high school all the way through to even past retirement, because at some point in time, you become an advisor to others. And that's what CSCMP affords. But continuing education right now is vital. And coming to Edge, as an example, is kind of a race to the finish line. It's like, I want to be on the edge of the next. And that's why the name Edge exists. We're on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, if you will, of the next innovation or innovative practice you need to bring back, and or the learnings you need to have to succeed in your career to turn that into ROI for the company you work for. Mm-hmm. So continuous education is very important. What I mentioned, speaking from the heart, since I've been a member of CSCMP and as a people leader in my career, I've had over 100 people join me in participating in Edge or taking some form of advanced education and or SC Pro certification with CSCMP. Now, I'm not going to lie. I mean, there's other associations and there's other certifications that are really good, right? And I've had people take those, and that's fine, because the bottom line is I want a sharper and I want a more inclusive and beneficial team at my fingertips. And then the final thing I'll say is the people leaders that pride themselves on leaving behind money on the table, that I didn't spend my entire budget. I saved the money. I saved the company money because I didn't, send everybody out to my A and B players to learn and develop. I mean, come on, there's a better model. You don't get any credit for saving money on your education budget. You get credit by making your people better. And when you make them better, they're going to stay. They're going to want to be a part of your organization longer because you've showed them that much more in care and concern for their development. So that's my holistic view of education and speaking from the heart as well. We can do better and we can do more. And that's why CSCMP exists.
Well, and I know Brielle brought up our Supply Chain Learning Center, and that's something that our organizations have collectively come together on to support the education side of things. So that's at supplychainlearningcenter.com. And CSCMP does have some certifications on there that you can go and apply for and take advantage of, because, I'm also a firm believer that supply chain education matters. I'm a firm believer that we do need to do better. We do need to think more outside of the box to kind of bring in new people to our industry to kind of keep things moving. So I feel like that's why we, work so well together, because we have those common beliefs together. So I thank you for your service on that, because I feel like that definitely helps move the needle a little bit for that.
You're very welcome, Rena. The collaboration is beneficial, and there will be more great content on the road ahead. I think the best is yet to come.
I totally agree with you. So to kind of pivot a little bit, we talk about supply chain disruptions a lot. They will always continue to be a challenge. I don't think that they're going to ever go away. They're just going to come in different forms. So from where you sit, what should companies be doing right now to future-proof their supply chains? Well,
there's multiple ways to answer the question, but I'll try to hit at the core. If we haven't figured it out already, one of the first things we need to do is take a hard look at what's in the mind and thoughts of the strategic leadership in your sourcing and procurement teams. Are they beginning to adopt a unique and new model that gets into a deeper conversation with critical and strategic suppliers so that you understand more about their extended supply chain and you're becoming more transparent about your needs? This is when 1 + 1 can equal 9. And the challenge negotiating through that kind of learning curve, and a better way to get inside of building resiliency and, if you will, assurance of supply, is also not giving up too much so that you still have price leverage. But if you think about the quality of performance first, I really truly believe this, and the expectations are clearly laid out, the right pricing will follow. So we can't be afraid. Our traditional 3 bids and a selection model must be challenged, and must be challenged in a great way. The second piece is that our transportation sourcing model must also change. If you talk to a global third-party logistics provider and go to the next global logistics provider and go to the next one after that, they're going to tell you the same story. They're going to tell you right now that consistency, reliability, accuracy, and communication matters. And they're going to be seeking partnerships with clients that can offer that. If you're running to them for a rescue treatment, you're going to get a back of the line treatment. I think the most important thing is developing and having a willingness to develop those really well thought out and strategic relationships. And are they going to solve the immediate problem? Maybe. But certainly you have to think about the next several months ahead, because 2022 is not going to be any easier on the transportation cycle. I think we're in this compression from a supply chain perspective for at least another year. It's going to take a while to work itself out. The third thing I think about in solving the problems, and the way to think about this, is back to the talent and the development of your people. If you want solutions and you want people to show up with answers that matter, support them to find those answers. Don't leave them behind, and don't pinch their ability to perform. Give them a long runway to learn, to develop, and continue supporting them as you move forward. And I think if you do this collectively, you're going to be one of the sharper companies that are winning. Because right now there's companies out there that are winning. They just may not be publicly telling their story because they're keeping it as competitive advantage. So, and that's what companies need to do. Think about building a competitive advantage from a supply chain perspective in a way that you've never done it before. And then finally, you got to invest in some form of automation. Look at your event management, your procure to pay cycles, and also look at opportunities for advancing in AI and machine learning, demand sensing. Partner with your retail supply chain and those who are actually marketing and selling your products. Help them help you so that you can be a better supplier to them. So AI is AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, but first and foremost, event management is key. Understand what you need to know and understand where your risks are by looking at accurate information that comes forward with investment in technology.
Perfect. Mark Baxa, everybody, President and CEO for CSCMP, talking about CSCMP Edge in Atlanta, which takes place September 19th through 22nd. If you haven't already, go to cscmp.org to register. I will be there. We have a booth. We're at 723, so come on by and say hello. And make sure you go to foodlogistics.com and secexec.com, because we will be having some show coverage throughout. So make sure that you stop by those 2 sites to keep an eye on things, and come back next week, same time, same place, because we are going to be introducing our overall winner of Supply and Demand Chain Executives Women of Supply Chain Awards. We're very excited. So hope to see you next week, 11 a.m. Central, on our social media stations. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you being a part of our program.
Oh, my pleasure. And I appreciate you and your entire audience. Thank you very much.
Yes. And we thank you and all of your members and your association for doing everything that you do to keep the supply chain moving. So thank you, everybody, and hope to see you at CSCMP Edge.
Excellent.